Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of She Means Well.
We're so excited to have you here again. Today we have a special guest, Tasia.
So sit down, get comfortable, drive, whatever you do, and enjoy the episode.
Okay. So I felt like the Lord was telling me that I needed to tell my testimony because a lot of it was rooted in a lot of lukewarmness. And I've been walking with the Lord for 7 years faithfully, like actually surrendered to him. But the last year or two, I went through something that just kind of made me like, I don't even want to be a Christian anymore. But I know that if I denounce my faith, then I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
Like, just to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, well then I won't denounce my faith, but I'm gonna just keep praying, and I'll just check off the boxes, and I'll read my Bible, and I'll go to church. I live in a church mansion. I serve at church. So it's just like, I don't want to get in trouble, do anything stupid. I don't want to go to hell. So I'm just gonna go through the motions. But literally that's like, you're going to the same place.
Yeah. Either way.
Right. Either way, sister.
That's not how it works. Yeah. So but I had deceived myself into thinking like, okay, like that's just what it is. And I started having dreams, and in these dreams I would be tempted to sin. And like each time I had one of these dreams, it would be like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. Oh, I stumbled into it. Okay, I repent. And then it would turn into like the final thing was like, oh, you know what? I know God doesn't want me to do that, but he'll forgive me later. Like he'll just forgive me later. And I remembered before I actually like gave my life to the Lord, like that's how I thought. And I was like, oh wait, I'm going, like something's wrong here. Like on the outside, nobody could probably tell that like I wasn't taking the Lord seriously, but I knew from that, I was like, my heart is actually turning away from him. Like it's growing very hard. And so I was laying in bed once, and I was like, how did I even get here? Because anybody who knew me, like you could not tell me anything. Like you're getting saved now. Like yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, so I was like, when I first got saved, I was going on the bus, praying with people to give their lives to the Lord, like all of that. So I was like, what happened? Like
Yeah.
what just happened to me? How did I even get here? And I felt like the Lord revealed to me, one, it's because I need to be more disciplined in my faith and spending time with him. But the other part of it was like, yeah, I'm at a church and I'm around Christians a lot, but a lot of them were leading me into a mindset of compromise. So it would be like something small, seemingly small, like maybe he was like, hey, I don't want you to drink coffee today, right? And someone's like, hey, you want me to buy you coffee? And I'll be like, no, I don't think I should drink coffee today. I just don't feel like it. Why? Well, I just feel like the Lord just told me to stay away from coffee today. Tasia, the Lord's grace is sufficient. I think you're just being legalistic. I think that you're just overthinking it. Like you should have a coffee. And if you are around people who do that enough, like you just give into it. You started believing like, oh, maybe I'm just overthinking.
Especially like spiritual leaders in your life.
Yeah. Yes, that's what made it harder. If it was people in positions like that, because you think like, okay, well, you've been doing this longer than me. And then so it just was like, okay, well, maybe I am wrong. And then you get gaslit out of your convictions. So it was like, oh, like it's not just me. I'm being influenced by people who are getting me to disobey God. And to some people it might be like, oh, well, it is just a coffee, but
He wanted you to practice discipline.
yeah, to practice discipline. Like sin is sin. He the same way he would look at, murder, he's looking at you drinking that coffee.
So true. We recently said that a sin is a sin.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And so I was just like, okay, well, how am I gonna get out of this? Because I don't. If part of it is I'm being influenced by people, like I can't just like what do? I don't know what to do. And so I was like, okay, maybe I just need to start praying and fasting. But then also it was like, yeah, but you are also gonna have to like be firm with people and like know they're probably gonna buck at you. Like they're not. It's gonna turn into a little bit of a debate. So.
Can I ask real quickly, is this before you were filled with the Holy Spirit, before you were baptized?
Oh, this is after. This is like within the last year.
Okay.
Yeah, I got saved in 2017, December 6, 2017. And I was watching The Case for Christ. Yeah, and I had already been going to church. Yeah. I had already been going to church for like a year, but I didn't really, like my mindset was more okay, yeah, I believe in Jesus because that's what I've been told. Jesus is God. And I believe he did die, but any God could be a God. Like the Bible was written by a man. Like why would I go try to convince somebody else that they should be a Christian?
Yeah.
I didn't have any facts behind it. And so when I watched that movie, I was like, oh, dang.
I haven't seen that movie.
I haven't either.
It's really good.
The Case for Christ.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's super
Connor
good.
was recently telling me about it. He said,
Yeah.
sit down and be ready with some tissues.
Okay.
It's really good
I need to watch
for like
it.
evangelistic purposes too.
Okay.
Because when people try to debate you, it's like, well, now I have facts. Like,
Yeah.
You go
Okay.
watch this movie.
I need to watch
Yeah.
it.
So just rewinding. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I just went on this journey of like praying and fasting and being like, okay, I need to take my faith seriously. I need to read my Bible. Like I need to forgive some people. I need to forgive God because the situation I was coming out of, I felt very hurt and betrayed by God. And so it was like, okay, well, I need to figure this out because none of this is worth going to hell over. Like it's just, it's just not worth it.
Mhm.
And the Bible says God does not allow pain without a purpose. So it was like all this stuff that I don't understand or that I don't know or that I'm angry with God about. If he's a good God,
Mhm.
which I have to choose to trust, then that means that all the stuff that I was going through, even if I didn't understand it, he would not have allowed it unless there was a good reason for
Yeah.
it. He would
So
not
true.
have allowed that. So I had to release control of trying to figure out like why it happened or why he let it happen the way that it did, and then just kept going. And so over the last year, like I've like just been like plowing like I'm still struggling with it a little bit just because
Easy to do.
yeah, it's like old habits you're trying to get out of. But that's just where I am right now. And then I have a discipler, and something I kept telling her was like, I don't trust anybody. I feel like I don't trust God. I don't want to be a Christian anymore, but I know that it's the truth. and I need to
that
do
you
this.
know.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, I know the truth, but I just need to be transparent because I know how dangerous this is. And I
Yeah.
was like, I feel like I don't even know what the point of this is anymore. Like, I don't know what I'm doing this for. Like, what am I here for? Like, I don't get it. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I do what Jesus says, and then I get the short end of the stick.
But why?
Yeah, and that's just how I felt. And so she told me to read this book called Driven by Eternity by John Bevere. I have not finished it, but the first like 2 chapters, I was like, Jesus literally told me this last year.
Wow.
Like, yes, I think in the 2nd chapter, he talks about how it will be harder for Christians now than it was when the apostles were here. And he was saying, like, why would it be harder now when they were being, like, killed? Like, you signed up to be a Christian and you know you're going to die.
Yeah.
So, like, what makes it so much harder now? And he talks about how it's harder because you're more easily deceived now. Like, there are people, there's, like, I was thinking about this yesterday, like, trying to explain it, like a thermometer. There's, like, this thermometer of Christianity. At the base, it's like, okay, you have the imposter. So it's people who are in church and they go through the motions, but they were never saved.
They're checking the list
Yeah,
off.
they're checking the list. They grew up in church. They say they're Christian, but they were never saved.
Yeah.
Then you have the lukewarm person, where you go back to Revelations when Jesus is talking to the 7 churches, and he tells a specific church, return to your first love. To say that you need to return to something means that you were already with it in the first place, and then you left it. So these are people who knew the Lord, that had encounters with him, they had a relationship with him, but they got distracted by idols. Their faith was probably choked out by hard things or pleasures. And he's telling them, like, you need to go back to your first love. And, like, you know, he says, depart from me. I never knew you, right? And then there's the person who is saved, but they're actively walking in repentance and sanctification. That's, like, the top of the thermometer. And so it was, like, when in that story, when I was reading it, I think in the 2nd chapter, it was saying, like, you could be deceived. Like, you could be around so many different people who are saying they're Christians and they're not. And that's why you have to be very discerning and check the fruit of people, because if you don't, then they can influence you to do the same thing. And before you know it, we're here on Judgment Day. And he's like, I mean, yeah, you did all these things. Yeah, you went to, you know, you were a leader at a church camp. Yeah, like, you know, you did all these missions, but you never spent time with me. You never talked to me. You never read my word. You never, the personal convictions I gave you, you never followed them. You just found a way to circumvent them and justify your behavior. And I have to say, depart from me. And I I don't want that.
That won't be me.
Yeah, life is already hard. So it's like you might as well let it be hard and get a reward at the end. Not like let it be hard and then you get eternity away from God. You don't get any reward for it. It's like you just
But it makes it so much easier when you're walking side by side with him because you don't have to carry all of that. And when you're actively showing up in like we talk about this all the time, like to have a relationship with someone means you need to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And to like actually invest in that relationship, it's so much easier than just checking the boxes.
Yeah.
Checking the boxes is so much harder because you still carry the weight of your sin and the decisions and the what ifs and all of that. But when you walk side by side and you actually encounter the Lord on a daily basis, you walk through hard things, but you don't have to carry it.
Yeah, it's not just you. I try to tell people, like, imagine if you were married to someone and you just, like, in the morning, you're like, hey, bye.
Yeah.
Good
morning, good night.
Don't respond.
Like your relationship cannot be deep.
Yeah, it's like you just won't have one anymore. Like you just like, cause we're like, no, it's like a roommate.
Hey.
It's not. Yeah, like hey, okay,
Your
good
dog.
morning, bye. Yeah.
Or it's just like you are married to this person and the only thing you ever do is ask them for things.
Yeah.
And like, where are you? I need you. Or please give me this job. Please give me this designer bag. Please give me this. Give me that.
I wouldn't want to be friends with them.
No, bye.
I don't want to be your friend. What?
Good thing I'm not God. I'd be like, bye.
The amount of patience he has, like that's what's supposed to empower you to repent, like, and to actually like follow him. But I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Even like I said, after a long time of walking with him, like taking advantage of that. But yeah, over that course of time, it was like, okay, well, part of the issue is, yes, I have to be more disciplined. But the other part of it is, if someone is also being lukewarm or is influencing me to be disobedient, I have to speak up about it. So it was like he was burdening my heart with like, you need to tell your testimony, but you also need to call out lukewarmness, like when it's confronted. And sometimes it when you're walking in your convictions and you're actually serious, sometimes you don't even have to like call anybody out. It'll be like someone just feels convicted and then they want to debate you and they get riled up. Yeah. So it would be like, it's seemingly small stuff, but like I was taking like one of my roommates' pimple patches. I was taking her pimple patches. I wasn't asking, and he would like bring up like, okay, you're stealing. It's like, oh,
borrowing.
Borrowing.
Yeah, put it back.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. So I'm like, okay, I should stop doing this. I should ask, but I need to like repent for this. So I go into a room and I'm at my house and I'm like, hey, I stole your pimple patches. I stole your pimple patches. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but I got convicted about it because stealing is stealing. Yeah. And I wanted to repent and ask you if I can start using them. And she said yes. And I live in a big house, like I mentioned. So people are overhearing. Someone's like, well, God's not going to be mad at you like for that because it's like a small thing and da-da-da-da. And I was just like, okay, but he's convicting me about stealing.
Yeah. But one opportunity, because you're like, and also conviction is conviction.
Like you need to follow it.
Yeah, you do. That's the Holy Spirit.
Yes, the more you reject it, the harder your heart gets. So it was like, okay, so it would be situations like that. And then it would be like this huge debate. And I'm like, oh, this is going to actually be kind of hard. Like people are not going to like this, but I'm just going to have to do it. I just have to do it. So I mentioned to you guys earlier, I was just like, okay, well, how am I going to tell my testimony? Like, okay, I'll do it at church. So I did start doing it at church, but it would be like at an event for 3 minutes. Or then they would be like, hey, we have this event going on at this school. Can you do it at this school? Yeah. How much time do I have? 3 minutes. Like, okay, which for the circumstances, it might have been maybe more appropriate, just, but which is fine. But I just felt like very deeply like, no, lukewarmness and being deceived and thinking that you're saved when you're not is actually a bigger issue than people really think it is. Like I need to tell the whole thing. Like I need to say the whole thing. So I was trying. I'm not really on social media like that. So it was like, God, you're gonna have to help me figure this out. I'm not good at making TikToks. I'm not good at these things. So then when our friend at my job was telling me about you guys, I was like, wow, you're so much smarter than me. Like, like you had this all planned out. You just want to make sure I was like on board. Like,
It's like
I was
actually
ready.
so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because we
Yeah.
wouldn't have been connected otherwise. And we're over here posting like, we want to have guests on. We want to have share people's stories. And it's just like divine. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Other
like,
way.
you don't need to figure it out. I got you.
Yeah, yeah, and you're down the street from me.
Yeah.
when I saw,
perfect.
because I checked, I was like, oh, this is supposed to happen. This is supposed to happen. So I'm like, this is really good. So I'm excited about that. But just backtracking, like the beginning of me being saved. So I grew up with a very mixed faith like background. So I have one side of my family, my mom's mom, who's a very devoted like Christian, like loves the Lord, serves him faithfully. On my dad's side, I have grandparents who are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't really know the difference. I thought it was the same thing. I just thought like okay, my personal opinion. I just thought being Jehovah's Witness was just more boring and you couldn't.
What, you don't
enjoy
celebrate a
holidays.
birthday? Yeah.
More legalistic.
Yeah. I just felt like, well, that's boring. I don't want to do that. Like everything is very different. And then they have like all the extra stuff that they add with the Bible.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Right. But my parents were not Christians at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not at all.
So your influence was your grandma.
Yeah, my grandma. So she would take us to church a lot. She told us about Jesus. She talked about like having us pray and ask Jesus into our heart. But a lot of people don't realize this. Like people don't really know what that actually means.
Right.
A lot
And to
of the
someone
time.
that doesn't know anything about faith or gone
Yeah.
to church, it sounds really weird.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, oh, please come into my heart.
And how old were you?
Oh, very little.
Okay.
Like 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like always been a part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always been a part of my life. So it was just like I was a cultural Christian. So
Right.
like I said I was a Christian. I knew some of the stories in the Bible. I knew Jesus died for our sins and that he rose from the grave on the 3rd day. But I didn't really understand the gospel. Like no one sat me down and was like, okay, this is, you have to have your faith in Jesus, but you also need to surrender like your life to him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what repentance is. And this is what it looks like. Like I had heard about lukewarmness. I had heard about like, heaven and hell and all these things. But my understanding of it was you say you're a Christian, you believe in Jesus, and then you just do a bunch of good things and that will keep you out of hell. Like you just do as much good
Or you
as
just
you
ask
can.
for forgiveness when you mess up.
Yeah. And then you'll just go to heaven. But what also made it harder, like I said, was my parents were not Christians. So my mom and my dad had me. My mom was like 16 and my dad was 22. Yeah. So my mom is from Missouri. My grandma had 8 kids with my grandpa. Yeah. And when they got married, they were not Christians. My grandpa grew up Catholic, but he was not really saved. They got divorced. My grandma took all of her 8 kids to Tacoma. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 kids.
Yeah, she wanted more,
You're
but she just couldn't have
holy
any.
cow.
Yeah, so 8 kids to Tacoma. They were living in shelters. My mom was like 2. And but yeah, let me say this because I was thinking about it. I'm really working on honoring my parents because after I just tell you everything, it can be hard.
Yeah.
Like for people to be like, how dare your parents? Or even me to be oh yeah, how dare they? I want to preface with my parents did the best they could.
Yeah.
Especially for people who were not Christians. I have to think like my mom was a girl before she was my mom. Like she was a woman before she was my mom. She had her own story.
And a girl when she had you.
Yeah, she was a kid. So it's like, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. And something that the Lord has been walking me through is the story of Joseph. I think it's Joseph. Was Joseph the one that he was in
His
Egypt?
brothers hated him.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Towards the end when his family comes back, like he's like, don't be afraid. Like, I forgive you. It wasn't you who sent me here. It was God who sent me here, right?
Yeah.
So I could be upset. I could at my mom and hold unforgiveness towards her and my dad and stuff. But at the end of the day, God already had this written out. It wasn't her that caused all this to happen. It was the Lord. And so if I'm taking it up with anybody, it's going to be him.
Yeah, it's
but
good.
it's going to glorify him and help people. So
Amen.
yeah. So just to preface, so my mom and my dad were really young. They just were very involved in a dangerous lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
My mom did not make it past middle school. She didn't make it to high school. Her mom and siblings were living in and out of shelters. She had siblings that were having kids out of wedlock or that would move back to Missouri to go live with her dad. And so she just kind of was like finding her family, like just in the streets, basically, just like doing whatever, hanging out with whoever. My dad, I don't really have a relationship with him. So
Did she
Yeah.
meet your dad through that lifestyle?
Yeah, like I had an uncle the other day. he was saying when my dad met my mom, he was like, "Man, I seen this girl. She's so fine. Like
Love that.
Like, she's so fine. You got to see her." And they were like in this neighborhood coming out some apartments, and my uncle was like, "Dude, she looks 12." Like,
She is.
she's way younger than you. Like I don't even.
She looks 12.
Yeah, like she was coming out of some apartments like with her friends. He was like, yeah, she was coming out with some ratchet ghetto girls, and it was like, and my mom was like very petite, little, white, bright blonde, long straight hair.
He's like, I thought you were explaining a woman.
Yeah.
She's a child.
Yeah,
Is that a Hello Kitty purse?
Yeah, like my mom is like Polish and like little and petite, like, and she looks super young. And he's like, "You're talking, yeah, like I'm thinking you're talking about some grown fine woman."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like no. So that just to paint a picture, both very young, both very immature, and so she's just trying to find her family, like in the streets, probably people she's hanging out with at school, I would imagine, or was friends with in school, I'm imagining. And then my dad had family from Texas. He'd been through a lot of different things, moved to Seattle when he was younger. And then his parents divorced. He kind of was involved in like gangs and hanging out with people that weren't very, beneficial for him. Moved to Tacoma and then got caught up in that lifestyle. As my grandma told me that when they got together, he was in college. Like, he was trying to, have a better life for himself. I don't really know what happened. But I think the influence of like his surroundings probably took over. My earliest like memories of the both of them like being together in my childhood was very violent, very like always an argument. There was drugs, guns, gang members, like
In your house.
in my house, like their association. That's basically what it was. I remember being young and like back then, if you had a family member that was like in jail, they wouldn't tell the kids they're in jail. They would say, "Oh, like if you're asking for dad, oh, dad's on the boat fishing. He'll be back."
Right.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's on the boat fishing. Or I had cousins.
I had a grandpa like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And an uncle.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of family members on the boat fishing.
They're on the boat fishing right now. They're on
They've
the boat
been fishing for a long
Yeah,
time.
they're like it's for work. They're on the boat fishing. But I mean, like we weren't dumb. Like how many family members out on the boat fishing? Like
It's a family business.
Family business.
yeah.
When
but
am I
we
gonna go to the
we
boat?
know they're in jail. Like it's fine. But yeah, I just remember him being on the boat. He was out there on the boat, and when he wasn't, they would be at home arguing. So like there would be nights I would wake up very, very young, very, very young. My dad would come home and he would fight my mom. He would put hands on my mom. I had an aunt that lived with us, and it would be like clockwork, like very late at night, like putting hands on my mom. I would wake up. My mom maybe would try to grab me, like take me out, and he'd make me sit on the couch, and they would fight, and he would be like, "No, don't move. Like stay right here, don't move." I would wake up and hear her yelling like, "You're hurting my neck, you're hurting my back," like all these different things. And then my aunt would just like be like, "Hey, come here, just come in the room." I remember,
Comfort you.
yeah, try to comfort me.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
Okay.
I have a lot,
Mhm.
different mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them different fathers.
Mhm.
But at this time, it was just me, my brother, who we shared the same mom, and then my dad had another son with another woman, and he got her pregnant around the same time my mom was. So I have one sibling.
okay.
Yeah,
Really close in age.
yeah,
Oh,
we're the same
okay.
age for a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So he's a year
Wow.
older than me, but we're the same age for a month.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember one night my aunt took me in a room. I was so scared, I just threw up. I just threw up because I was like,
So anxious.
yeah, I think I just had I didn't know that's what it was, but I had a lot of
Nobody
anxiety.
knew what anxiety was, I swear, until like 4
nobody-
years ago.
Yeah,
No.
I didn't know. I didn't even know. I think I was desensitized to having anxiety for a long time. Yeah, but that was very normal for me, like a very normal lifestyle. Like your parents argue, they break up, like they're not together. Most people around me were not married. Like
Right.
it was just the lifestyle that we were in. And then after that, it would be like my dad had a bunch of new girlfriends, or my mom had a bunch of different new boyfriends. And sometimes they would try to get me to call them dad, and I'm like, you're not my dad.
How
Or
confusing. Yeah.
it was I don't know. It was just they were young, so
Yeah.
I think like you're caught up in the flesh. You just,
Totally.
and then you want validation and you're insecure. You kind of just settle for anything. Yeah, so they end up dating new people, kind of doing their own thing, going their own way for a little bit. And then my mom starts getting a little bit more serious with this new guy. And she gets pregnant by him. And around this time, I'm like 4, about to turn 5. She has my sister. And okay, so the guy looks like me, like he's like light skin, right? So I think like me and my brother, we just think like, oh, we're just gonna have like another one of us. But my sister actually looks like you guys. So
Nuh-uh.
yeah, she was like, yeah. So I was like, oh, you're a white baby, like,
Hello.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's surprising. But then it was like, all right, it's my sister, whatever, Well, before I touch on that, there is something like pretty serious to get into before that.
Okay.
I don't know if my mom is pregnant yet, but she's dating like this guy. And one night, me and my brother are sleeping, and my mom and dad already broke up. He doesn't live with us at all anymore. And we wake up and he's just in our house in the dark with a hoodie. Yeah. And he rolls us up in blankets and puts us in the back seat of his car. And like, so we're like, okay, obviously he just broke in here. Like he just broke in and he took us. And we're
Probably already scared of your dad because of what he's doing to your mom.
I think,
Assuming you were so little though.
I don't think I started becoming afraid of him. Well, maybe I was afraid of him, just not as much, because again, all that was kind of normal to me. Yeah, so it just was more like I would be afraid, like if I was gonna get in trouble, I'd be like,
Right.
oh my gosh,
Okay.
no, but not like if I see him, I'm like,
It's not like you're being kidnapped by a stranger. It's your
it's
dad,
like, it's my dad,
saying,
so it's like it's just my dad.
yeah.
But it was very much like, oh, he's not supposed to be doing this, but it's my dad, so I'm gonna listen to him.
Yeah.
So he gets us, he puts us in the car, and I remember like very distinctly, like he was in a rush because we kept rolling off of the back seat, like to say,
You're little.
yeah, little, like like really little, like
Goodness.
maybe not even 5 yet. And so my brother's like 3 and I'm like maybe 4, and we're like rolling off the back seat, and he's like, Tasia, get your brother up and buckle him in. And we go to this apartment complex that we grew up in, and he parks there. And you know how like when like the lights from the street lights are coming, like it was very like vivid. It felt like
Yeah.
a movie scene. It was like dirty orange street lights gleaming through the car.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting there, and he's quiet in the front seat. I've never seen my dad cry, but he's like sobbing in the front seat, like sobbing. And I was like, Dad, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? And he's crying, and he's like, well, Daddy's just crying because Mommy wouldn't let me see you because you were sick.
Mm.
And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I didn't think blatantly like, oh, he's lying, but I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And I can't remember everything throughout the timeline of what happened, but what I do remember is we're staying in that apartment complex, and then a few days later, he takes us to go pick up this girl, and the girl gets in the car, and we drive back to the apartment complex. And my grandma's outside, my mom's outside, my auntie's outside. Yeah. Me and my brother are in the back seat, and we're like excited, like, oh, it's mom,
Yeah.
like it's auntie, it's grandma, whatever. Well, my dad and the girl jump out the car so fast. The girl starts beating my mom, like beating her. Yeah, like beating her because she's trying to get in the car and unbuckle like my brother and then me and get us out of the car. And she's like,
Your
"Give me-"
mom is?
Yeah. She's like, give me my kids. And the lady like pulls her by her hair. My mom has really long, like blonde hair and a ponytail. She's like pulling her hair out. I'm watching her kick her in the stomach, like beat her with a pole. I'm like screaming, like, get off of my mom. Like,
Oh my
like
word.
what's happening? So I turn around, my brother's crying. I look out the back window, and my dad's like screaming in my grandma's face. Like, I can remember what she's wearing. I can remember what he's wearing. She's like crying. She's staring at me, like looking at me with defeat. He like pushes my grandma. So my grandma's like on the floor. Yeah. We're just like, what is happening right now? So then the girl and my dad get in the car and we like drive off, and I'm like screaming. Like,
You're still in the car.
You're in
we're
the
still this
car?
Yeah, we didn't get out. Like we weren't able to get out. Like everyone's fighting. Like we
Yeah.
just very quickly like leave. Again, I don't know where we went after that, but we end up in the same apartment complex. I'm like, I don't understand what he thought his plan was. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm like, you just keep taking us back to the same place.
Yeah. They're going to find us.
Yeah, like, he just keep taking us back to the same place. But I remember we were young enough for me to at least have like pull-ups on and like my brother a diaper, because then I had like a shoelace lanyard with a binky on it, and then I remember we were both in pull-ups or diapers, and we're sitting on top of a bunk bed in my dad's room, and 2 cops come in, and they're like, hey, we're gonna take you home to your mom. My dad's not there. It's like one of his friends there being questioned by another police officer, and they take us and they put us in the back of a cop car, and my brother's crying because he's like, I don't want to go to jail. Like, he's scared. He doesn't want to go to jail. And I don't even think we were in car seats. I just remember being in the back of the cop car and being like, whoa, this is weird. Like, they have bars on the window. Like, I didn't know that. Like, the back of the seat was like lined with like metal, like all these different things. And then they take us home, and my mom is like crying. She's so happy, but I'm like, I don't really know what just happened right now. Like, I don't really know what happened. And again, it felt still kind of normal. So even though it was like crazy, it was just like, okay, back to your regular life now.
You probably almost don't even realize how wild that is until you learn how far from like the original design,
Yeah.
how God intended, marriage or a family or what it looks like to parent. And
Yeah.
like, you don't realize how wild that is until later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It just was like, I don't even think I had the concept of like how it really should be.
Yeah.
Until
You're not even in school yet.
Yeah, I wasn't even I had gone to daycare and stuff, but not even like nothing like that. The concept of like family and marriage and like what it should be like is more like when I got older.
Yeah.
Maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, honestly, where I was
Mhm.
like, well, I know what I want and this is not what I want.
Yeah.
So after that, in order to kind of keep my dad from coming back and getting us, my mom had to stay with my grandma. I don't know for how long, but we weren't really allowed to go anywhere, go outside, do these things, unless it was like super early in the morning or, somewhere far away from the area my grandma was living in, because she actually lived down the street from my dad. So it was like kind of, and I know that it had to be like, I look back, I'm like, that had to be so hard on my mom, because she was probably only 20, like maybe 21, and then
what, your dad, like 25, 26?
yeah, somewhere around there. And then like my grandma said my mom would come over like right before work early in the morning and kiss us and then go to work, because she couldn't be around us. Like, she had to, it was her way of trying to protect us. And she ends up packing our stuff up one day randomly. I never knew about anything. We're on a road trip driving to Missouri. We're moving to Missouri.
Road trip. It's vacation.
Yeah, we're like just picking us up. We're like, hey, we're we're going to Missouri. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, okay, this is gonna be fun, but this is after she had a baby with the guy she was dating. And I did not know this until I got older, but the reason my dad did all that was because the man that my mom had my sister with had people that were going to do a drive-by on our house. And my dad knew about it because he knew some of the people
Oh, wow.
that had issues with him. And so he actually was doing that to protect us. Yeah. And so, I mean, nobody had told me that when I was younger, so I did have like kind of this like incomplete story and understanding of my dad. So I was scared of him like as I got older, but stuff like that made it kind of be like, oh, like he actually, he was trying.
You see where he's coming from, kind of? It's like,
yeah, I would have did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have did it, So it was like, okay, on one end, he did have his faults. He was abusive, he was aggressive, he had his own issues. But with the level of love or knowledge of love that he did have, he used it to try to protect me and my brother, So, and my mom did the same thing. So she took us. We're driving to Missouri with my sister. She's like 1, we don't know why we're moving there. We don't know anything.
Her boyfriend coming?
No, they broke up. All right, there's I think they broke up very quickly after my sister was born, and I think he did the same thing to my sister. I don't know why. Like he I think it more may have been out of spite. Like there was some time my mom's freaking out. He took my sister, so she's like driving around calling the police, trying to get my sister back. I feel like this is actually kind of a common thing I've actually heard with people who have kids with people. Like someone tries to it's like a thing. I don't know why. It could just be, like I said, out of spite. I'm not sure, but yeah, so that happened, and I think she just was over it and was like, I just want a new life. I want to start over. I don't want to deal with these guys anymore. I want to go back to where my family is. So we leave, and I think I can't remember specifically asking her, but I do remember like knowing part of the reason we were leaving is because she was trying to get away from my dad. Like that's something that she kind of made clear. So we get to Missouri, and I'm just thinking like, oh, it's just my family, you know, it is what it is. We get there, my grandma's there, and it felt like initially more like a vacation. It didn't feel like we're uprooting our whole lives and we're just going to move here, you know, for sure. But these are family members I don't really know. Like I've never met them before. Well, I think one, but not enough that I could remember. We move in with one, and we stay in like an extra room. Me, my little sister, my mom, my brother, like all in one room. Yeah.
Cozy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Real cozy. All of it. Yeah. My mom, I think she's really young. She's really young. Cause I was only like 5, like maybe 5 or 6 around that time. And so we're living there, and everything's fun until my grandma has to leave, and it's like, oh, this is like, you're not staying, you know? So it got really hard after that. So we made the best of it. You know, I had a cousin, and she was older than me, and she had a brother, so he hung out with my little brother, and we would hang out, but we weren't in school. We didn't get put in school. We didn't get put in daycares, nothing like that. And I had some curiosity as to why that was, and I could overhear my mom like on phone calls with people like, I'm not putting my kids in schools where they're going to be racist towards them and all these different things. And as far as I knew about black people, we just came from slaves, and they're racist people, but I didn't think like it was that deep. Like I didn't think it was
Or
like,
modern day.
yeah, I didn't think it was like that big of an issue. And like I had some experiences that were like, oh, I guess I am different. Like, I guess like it might be a thing here. But because she didn't put me in school, like I wouldn't have seen like the depths of it at that point. But I remember the cousin that I hung out with the most, she was taking me to go hang out with one of her friends, and she knocked on the door, and her friend couldn't play, but she came back to me and was like, yeah, she said you're not really my cousin. And I was like, why? Like, why would she say that?
Yeah.
And she's like, because you're black. And I was like, okay, that's rude. Like,
You're like, I'm pretty sure we
I'm
are.
pretty sure we're cousins. You know?
Like, have you seen my sister?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm definitely your cousin, but I mean,
Wow.
she didn't like take it to heart. She just, I think she brought it up because she felt like it was weird too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, you
know?
guys were so little
Yeah,
too.
we're young, like very young. I think she
Yeah.
was like 9. I'm like 6, and we're just like, I think we just like we're like whatever, like we're just gonna go
Right.
play on bikes or whatever.
Yeah.
But
But now looking back, you're like,
yeah, and I would not say that statement is inherently racist. Like she's stating a fact, like I'm black and you're
Yeah.
white, like you know.
Yeah.
But it just was the first time I was like, oh, like it's actually I'm actually different. Like it felt like, oh, I'm different. And so we weren't in school, where my mom is like going to work. She doesn't really trust anybody to watch us. My cousin, like her mom and dad like had things to do too, so I couldn't go over there all the time. So we a lot of times were locked up in a room, like for most of the day. So then when we were out, we were very disrespectful, like very rude, very disrespectful to my mom. We fought with her a lot. We weren't very kind to her. We fought with each other a lot. And so at some point, I think like my mom just started being cool with my dad again, because he would call and she would put us on the phone with him in order to like discipline us or whatever, And I think I don't think we were there even a year. I think we were there for like 6 months. So she was like, I think she was kind of like torn between like, okay, I know I moved here, but like this is not, I don't have any friends here. Like I have
And doing
problems
it
with
all
people.
on your own.
Yeah, you're trying to start over. She's not really the best of friends with all of her family members, and then so it was just like some of the people that she would have us like be watched by, She had issues with them. So it, like, her system and her community was a lot smaller and her resources were a lot few at a certain point, I think. And then, you know, we were being bad. So like the level of authority that the other people had in our lives, like we didn't really respect them as much just because we didn't know them as much. We didn't know them as well. And I think she just got sick of it again. Next thing I know, my dad's staying with us. He flew out
In Missouri.
Yeah, he flew out
Wow.
and he's staying with us for like a Christmas. And I'm like, okay, like I guess he's back. He came back. They seem to have rekindled things, and then maybe like a month later we fly back to Tacoma, and all of our Christmas presents are left behind, our car in Missouri, everything. Yeah, she had issues with one of my cousin's moms. They fought outside of our house. My mom very specifically, like when she got our plane tickets, was like, if anybody like comes here or asks any questions, like don't tell them that these plane tickets are up here. You don't tell anybody that we're leaving. I'm like, okay. And one night I'm just watching TV and like my aunt is like banging on the door, or like my cousin's mom and her boyfriend are banging on the door like, hey, get out here, my mom's in the shower. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to answer the door. I don't know what to do. They're like looking through like the blinds. They're like, we can see you, Tasia, go get your mom. Like, go get your mom. I go get my mom. She gets dressed. She goes out there, and they're fighting, like fighting.
Yeah.
yeah. So then, we leave, and then we start over again. We go to Tacoma. They break up again. My parents break up again, and we're living with my grandma now. So my mom does not have like a steady place for us to live. We're sleeping on 3 different couches. My sister sleeps in the room with my grandma. And I still haven't started school yet. I'm like almost 7. I haven't started school yet. So I knew like smaller words, but I didn't know how to read full sentences. I didn't know really any math or anything like that. My brother and I had not started school at all. We had been like daycare and stuff, but not actual any schooling. So we're there. We're at daycare. My mom's, again, trying to get back on her feet, get her life together. Meets another guy. I hated this man. I did not like him. Like I think kids have a different like level of discernment.
Yeah.
Yeah, cuz when I met him, I think the first time I met him, it was just like, "Oh, ha ha ha, mom, that's your boyfriend. Like you're just like that's not," cuz she introduced him as her friend. And so it was like, "Oh, that you're saying that's your friend, but haha, that's going to be your boyfriend, right?" But then as I started seeing them more serious, I'm like, I actually really don't like him. Yeah, like I actually don't like him. So they're dating, but things are moving very quickly. And I'm like, I really don't like this guy. And okay, this is going to sound scary, but as you can imagine, my mental health and like as a kid, my understanding was just not very healthy, very wise,
A little distorted.
Yeah, but it would be like I did not like him to the point where I was just drawing a picture one day and I drew a picture of like my dad killing him. Like, yeah, I got in so much trouble for that. And like, I look back, I'm like, first of all, that's like very big mental health issues. But number 2, that's like extremely demonic. Like a bunch of doors had to have been open for me to even think like, you know, that's okay to do.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so
Or that you could even imagine that.
yeah, that I could
at
even
that
think
age.
something like that. So it was like, we're like that to me, I'm like, that's a huge red flag. Like you need to put your kid in counseling. Like,
Well, there's so much. I mean, that's like such a form of therapy for children too. To like,
Yeah.
so much comes out with just drawing.
yeah.
And so it's like that was in your mind, in your heart, and just for you to think that that was like a solution.
Yeah.
A
It
good
was like,
solution.
how are we gonna get rid of this problem?
Yeah.
Like that's like, and I don't think I think I only knew it was wrong because I got caught. Like I got in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm blatantly like in the dining room like drawing this, and then my brother was like, "Oh, this is bad," and he goes and tells my mom, and then I get in trouble. And then after that, it was like, "Oh, actually, I was actually wrong. Like I probably shouldn't have did that." But it was just my mind was just not my life. None of it was healthy. So I get put in school when I'm like 7. I get put in school when I'm 7, but they don't know where I am intellectually, so they put me in the same kindergarten class as my brother. And they let me stay in there maybe for like a couple of weeks, and then they put me in first grade. It put me in first grade, and then that's where I start learning to read, and that's where I start learning to write and all these things. And we like school, we enjoy it, but now we're still conflicted because at home is not like how it is at school, and you don't know how to like hide like what's going on necessarily. So I'm having fun at school, but then I go home and my mom's mad at me about something, or she's fighting with her boyfriend, or the same guy that I'm talking about that I didn't like. Yeah. And so it just was like constant chaos to the point where it'd be like she's fighting with me and she's still trying to figure out how to be a mom, and she's still trying to like find someone to like validate her, and she's still maybe trying to like recover from like whatever issues she's had on her own. And I'm still disrespectful and disobedient. So there would be nights where she would just like pin me up against a wall and like even choke me. And she had like these acrylic nails, and they'd leave like marks on my neck. So I remember one time she was like, don't tell anybody about this. Like if anybody asks, like just don't say anything. Say you don't know where it came from. Just do something. Just trying to get me to cover it up with like, I had this blue fuzzy turtleneck that had like white snowflakes on it, and she had me like cover my neck up with it at school. And just that's just what our life was like, because she gets in a situation with a man, it doesn't work out, our life falls apart, we start over. My relationship and my brother's relationship with her gets worse. We get more disobedient, she gets more stressed out. And then it just just like over and over and over again, and we don't talk about anything. We just act like it never happened.
Which she was like drinking an aspect too.
Yeah. She had as far as I'm aware, she had a alcohol problem as far back as like before my brother was born. That's just what like my aunt, like my like family members have told me. But I do remember like vividly, like that was like their way of like bonding, was like where me and my brother are playing with some cousins or something, and my mom and aunties and stuff are gossiping, and they're drinking like brandy and Coke together. Like, you know, that's just what they did. But I think it started out as like functional alcoholism, and then it started like intensifying. So it would be like, now we're not just drinking like a bottle of brandy together like on the weekends. It's like I'm stressed out from work, so every other day we're gonna drink a bottle of Ciroc together or Smirnoff together, and like, you know, things like that. So and just with all the issues she was having mentally, I think that it affected it more, it enhanced it. So she just kept, you know, living that way. We didn't talk about anything. We didn't really find a resolution to anything. There was no like, I'm sorry. We didn't say I'm sorry about stuff. We just kept living. We kept sweeping stuff under the rug.
Were you ever asked at school about like your home life stuff going on?
Yeah, actually. It happened a little later, like not too old later, but around the same time. So after me and my brother got put in school, my mom decided, I want to, you know, move in with this guy. So she moves me and the guy in together, but then my brother moves in with my dad, and my sister stays with my grandma. So we get separated pretty young, because
Sounds like your brother and you were pretty tight.
We were pretty tight, but we argued a lot. I think it was just more because like
you guys were each other's only friend,
yeah,
really.
We were each other's only friend, but we were also like, we had no like room to breathe. So it was like we're constantly with each other, and now we're getting older, and now like we're punching.
And you're
each
like
other
the
in
same
face.
age, right?
So it's like we're just constantly like fighting each other. Like I'm growing into a girl, he's growing into a young man. He doesn't have like a steady male figure, and my mom picks up this job where she has to drive around and deliver. I feel like I've heard of the name like as I got older, but I don't remember what it is. But she would drive around Washington and like even Oregon sometimes, delivering medication to like nursing homes and things like that. And she couldn't, like some concierge, something like that. She was doing that, and she couldn't do it with my sister because she was so young. She couldn't sit in the car that long. So she gave my sister to my grandma. And then my brother went to live with my dad, and then it was just me, my mom, and her boyfriend, who I didn't like. So, So
you probably were like, can I just be with my grandma?
I loved my mom. Even though I wasn't very aware that like her choices were unwise. I think it was just like, it's normal, but also
wanted to be with your
Yeah, I
mom.
loved my mom. Like I wanted to stay with her, and at this point, yes, I think I was scared of my dad. I was very afraid of him. Like there was no like concept of mercy or grace or compassion or comfort from him. Like with my mom, it would be more like she might fight me, or she might cuss at me or yell at me or lose her patience, but you know, she was a woman, so she could very quickly grow like gentle. You know, she wasn't very like cuddly with me or anything, but she like a woman's voice as opposed to a man's voice, like it's a lot more calming. Like
Nurturing.
you have that kind of connection. But so I was disrespectful to her, but I still had like this sense of loyalty to her, because initially, like first starting off, even though we had all these issues, like I viewed her as like my best friend. So we had it was like my best friend that I was beefing with all the time.
Yeah.
That's basically what it felt like. And so it's just me, her, and her boyfriend I don't like, and we finally get a place to live together. And I remember one time he comes up to me and he goes, like, you better be grateful, because like I gave you guys a place to live. Like I gave you guys a place to live. And I think he kind of came at me like that because he knew I didn't like him. He just knew I didn't. But it would just be the same thing. Arguing, she'd pack my stuff like 3 a.m. in like a grocery bag, and we go sleep in a parking lot somewhere until they stopped arguing. And then I don't know if it was my demeanor, or maybe I did have scars on my body. I don't know exactly what it was, but going back to your question, like I went to school one day and I'm on the playground, and this lady comes up to me and she's like, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm going to have you come to the office. And so I go to the office with her, and she's asking me like, do I know the difference between what a lie is and what telling the truth is? And I was like, yeah, but I'm like kind of confused, because I'm like, why are you asking me this question?
Yeah.
I'm probably like around 8 now. I'm probably 8. And she doesn't say like why she's concerned, but she's asking me like, is everything okay at home? Like, what's going on with you? Or like, are you fine? And again, nothing's fine, but it's all normal to me.
Right.
So I think I had kind of thought like everybody's life was like mine.
Right. And why would
Yeah.
you think otherwise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought growing up, that everybody had a similar family as
Yeah.
me. This is what you do in the house. and-
Right. I like, it was my understanding that when you get pregnant with someone, you fall in love, you break up, you become a single mom, and then you find somebody else.
Wow.
Like I remember distinctly thinking like, well, I don't really want to find somebody else, because that just looks like a lot of work and it looks really hard. So I think I'll just get pregnant and be a single mom. Like I
Like
remember
that seemed like a better option.
That was like my desire. Like okay, if I have kids, I don't want to have a dad for them. I just want to have the kid. Like
I can do it on my own,
yeah, I'll just
easier
be
and
a
better.
single mom. Like
Yeah.
That's probably what
Yeah.
you wanted for your mom and you, for just to be you guys.
Yeah, over time, definitely, because it was like, okay, this is not going well for any of us. Like, like you keep choosing these, your picker is off, bro. Like,
Yeah.
it was just a mess. So like, it would just be better to just have your kids and be single. But again, just same cycle, same issues. Finally get a new place to live, pretty stable. I'm in middle school. My brother and my sister are in elementary school. And it becomes my responsibility now to basically take care of them. So I get up in the morning. I get my sister ready for school. I walk to school. I walk back home, drop my stuff off, go pick them up from school, bring them home, make sure their homework's done, make sure the house is clean, which is really hard to do, because once you clean up, kids get it dirty all over again.
And you're 12.
Yeah, and I'm 12. Yeah. And then it would
You're
be
a
like,
kid.
Yeah, and then I have my own homework to do, and I'm exhausted. And so I'm picking up, cleaning up. I'm not allowed to use the stove or the oven to cook anything. I'm limited to what I can and cannot eat, because my mom, she was a food hoarder. I think some of it may have been like she was trying to budget stuff out, but the other part of it is I have a lot of people in my family who are overweight, so there would be like she would hide food in her room from us, like
Okay.
things like that. But it would be like that every day. And then when my mom would get home late from work, it's like she's arguing with me, she's fighting, like I'm talking like jumping on me, pulling my hair, cussing me out, like things of that nature. So very much was the equivalent of like you're a wife taking care of somebody's kids and you're working, and then your husband comes home and abuses you. Like that, that's what it was like every day. But then in addition to that, if she is dating somebody else, or like I mentioned, the guy, if she was on and off with him, it's like now I have problems with him. So I'm like essentially the man of the house.
There's so much responsibility
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah. And it felt normal, but I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
Like I knew it was my normal, but I knew it was bad. And the reason why it made it a little bit seem more like this is just kind of how life is, because a lot of the kids I grew up around, like that's what their life was like, or my cousins and things like that, that's what it was like. But I'd gotten to a point where I was like really fed up. But by this age, by 12, it was like, mom's not my best friend anymore. I don't have any benefit of the doubt for her. I have zero respect for her or the people that she's dating, and I have no fear. So so it would be like I'm waking up because I can hear my mom crying, and I'm walking into a room, and this dude she's with has his fist over her face. And I'm like going off on him. And as I got older, my mind actually suppressed a lot of memories. So like the one I'm going to say right now, I can only remember bits and pieces of, but my sister remembered it. So she told me the whole thing. I go and I'm like, get off my mom. Like we start fighting, and he originally came over to get some chicken. He originally came over to get some chicken.
What a guy.
Yeah, he came over to get some chicken. And in between this, I'm like fighting him, and I think he like backhands me, and like I get like black under my eye. But before it turns black, like I go in the kitchen, I bag up this chicken, and he walks after me. I throw the chicken at him. And I was like, take your chicken and go. Take your chicken and get
Yes,
out.
Tasia, you go.
I'm like, get out. And my sister was like, no, I remember that happening, because I was like, wow, he's fat, because he really picked it up, and then he left.
Oh my gosh,
Just
all the
ground.
pieces.
5-second rule.
He picked up the chicken and he left. Like she said, I
Yikes.
remember he looked at you like he was kind of scared, but he still picked up the chicken and left. And I was like, oh dang, like I must have been really heated.
On you?
Yeah, like I must have been like
for you.
hot, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I was fed up. Like I remember I still wasn't a Christian, but I still prayed, and I remember feeling so guilty because I didn't like my mom.
Yeah.
Like I would be sobbing, like crying and praying, like, God, I don't like that I'm saying this, but I don't like my mom. Like I don't want to be here. I don't like this life. I don't like taking care of her kids. I'm alone. Like nobody likes me here. I'm super insecure, and it just was a problem every day. Like every day we're fighting. Eventually my brother gets into the same middle school as me, but my mom has us apart from our dad. My sister isn't really too close to her dad at this point. She's more close to like his parents. So she gets to spend time with her family members and stuff like that. So it's kind of just like me and then my siblings, and we're fighting because I'm also younger. My brother's only a year younger than me, so he doesn't really respect me as much, which made it harder. But my dad drives by one day. My brother leaps out of the house. He moves back in with my dad. So then it's just me and my sister. Fast forward like another year, I turn like 13, and the weight is like really on me to take care of her. So like if she got sick or she had issues, I'm not in school. I'm at home. I'm taking care of her.
And your mom's at work.
Yeah, she's at work, or sometimes she wasn't at work. Sometimes she was kind of just doing what she wanted to do. I think majority of the time she was at work, but there was a few times like very late at night, she would come home and she'd be bringing a guy home. Like, and so I was like, oh, you weren't actually at work.
Right.
Like I've been doing this by myself, and you're like on a date, you know? So it's just me trying to take care of my sister, and I got something called a Becca bill. Have you guys heard of the Becca bill? Yeah. So I got one of those, and I was getting them because I had all these unexcused absences because I'm at home. My mom's not taking me to school. I'm taking care of my sister, and we had moved further away from my school like during my 7th grade year. So it's not like I could just like walk to school like if I wanted to, or like I was anywhere close to it. And I had already gone to court for it, and they're like, hey, you know, if you keep missing school, you're going to have to do community service, And then the
It's your fault.
yeah, like it's my fault. And it was so crazy because some of the other kids in court, I was like, oh, I know them. Like these are like the bad kids. I'm like, I'm not. No,
I'm not just skipping.
I was like, no, I'm not one of the bad kids. And my mom, I think sometimes I do think she felt like a level of remorse. Like she was aware, like, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Like she could tell she was losing me, because when we were in court, she was like, look, I even put it on here that it's my fault. It's not your fault. But she had already lost me at that point.
Yeah.
Like I had no respect for her. I was just over it.
Probably angry with her.
Oh, I was extremely angry at her, because it was like it never stopped. Like the betrayal never stopped. The lies never stopped. The abuse never stopped. So it was just, I just was constantly disappointed, and I'm like, now I'm in risk of going to jail because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And that's how I felt. But then we go home, and it was like court never happened. Like,
She's like everything else.
yeah, she's not taking me to school. And this is where I had it. Like I had it. She another thing about her was she would lie a lot. Like she was a really like habitual liar. Like it was really bad. And one morning I'm supposed to go to school. She's like, your aunt's going to take you to school. I'm like, okay, we're supposed to be outside of the school 7:45, and it's like 7:40. So I don't have a phone. We don't have a house phone. I'm not allowed to use phones. I'm not allowed to have access to talk to anybody else, really. If I did, I snuck it. Yeah, I wasn't. She was very like controlling and looked to isolate, because she didn't want things that were being done in the dark to be exposed. Like to the point where if we were going to visit a family member, she'd like turn back and look at us in the car and be like, when we get in there, you don't say anything about my boyfriend. You don't say that I've been hanging out with this person. You don't say that this or this happened. You just be good.
Got the Becca bill.
Yeah, you do not say anything. And that's just what we lived like. But at this, like I said, I kind of over it. So I was just like, I mean, we're going to fight anyway. So, So I call my aunt, who she said was coming to pick me up. And my aunt's like, it's my day off. I'm sleeping in. Like, what are you talking about? I hang up. I bang on the bathroom door. I'm like, I'm not going to jail because of you. I'm not doing all this. You get out of that shower. Take me to school. Like, I'm angry because I'm like, I'm not doing this with you. I'm like, I take care of your kids. I do all these things. And she gets out. She fights with me. My aunt drives over. Me and my mom are screaming at each other. I'm crying. And she's like, you can, like, when you get home from school, you're packing your stuff. You're going to stay with your dad. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I was just over it. I get to school. I'm sobbing. The attendance lady, like, sees me crying. She's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. God bless attendance ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was really nice. She was cool. I was like, okay, I'm not going to have to go back to court. I'm not going to have to do these things. Okay, cool. So my aunt picks me up from school, and she's like, okay, you don't have to stay with your dad. You're going to stay with me. But your mom says it's just temporary. And I was happy because my aunt more was like my best friend. Like after, like I already, like she had lived with us, like when I was younger, living with my sister and my mom, my dad. We all had lived together. Like my dad, my aunt, me, my siblings, all of us. And she was like, I looked like her. I talked like her. We danced the same, all these things. So I really looked up to her and I respected her. And I was really happy because I was like, okay, I'm going somewhere where I know I'm safe. I'm with someone I trust and I love. Like, I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was on drugs at this point, selling drugs, like having another kid with another woman, like still around gang members and doing whatever he was doing. So
Was your brother living with him still?
Yeah, he was. So it was
so
like,
did you know this information because just talk around your family, or were you exposed to it? Were you around it?
I was exposed to it. Like I would be more around it because when my brother moved in with my dad, like after a while I was able to see him sometimes and go over there and stuff. And it would be like his girlfriend's in the kitchen and she would have like a plate with like cocaine on it that's crushed up, and she'll put it in a plastic, like a black plastic bag, and put on top of the fridge so the younger kids couldn't get to it. And people would just come over and she would sell them to drugs, and then they would leave, and then that was just our life. But my dad, I didn't know at the time my dad was on drugs, but later on it was like more clear, more apparent, because when you're coming down from them, you have like really bad anger spells, or like yeah, you're erratic, you think weird, even if you're on them sometimes, like you're thinking weird. He'll sleep a lot. And then sometimes like he would fight with his girlfriend because she would like expose too much. Like she'd be standing out the window and be like, did you get us work for the day? Did you get us work? And I remember he got mad at her.
Keep it quiet.
Yeah, he's like, you're gonna expose like what we have going on here. So that didn't play out too well for her. But yeah, so I was just like, well, I rather would stay with my aunt anyways. Like it was fine. So I move in with her. Things are going fine. Things are going well. But my dad still wants a level of some kind of control. So she's not legally, like, she hasn't adopted me or anything. I'm just staying there. But I think it like emasculated him a bit and made him like struck his pride.
Yeah. Like if your mom's not who you're staying with, then it should be your dad in his mind. Yeah.
So he had issues with that. And then we'd gotten into an argument once where I just told him like, look, you're having issues with me and you're having problems with me, but maybe you just need to stop having kids with different women and take care of the ones you already do have. Like, yeah.
Oh, good for
You
you.
said that.
I did. And around that time I had been with my aunt maybe already like a year. I was like 14. And that made it worse. That made it worse between us, like me and him, because I think he just felt like, oh, you're going to disrespect me. I'm going to show you I'm the dad. Like, so he tried to control from like far away.
Probably knew that was the truth too.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. When someone's convicted about something and they manifest like that, it's like, it's because you're wrong, So
Totally.
yeah, he knew he was wrong, but I think at some point, because my uncle was in the military, so the man that my aunt was married to was in the military. When I moved in, that first year was very smooth because I trusted her and I was already close to her. He was in Korea, I think.
So he's deployed.
Yeah, so he
Okay.
comes back after like a year, and I think he, from a man's perspective, he was trying to understand my dad, so he gained a little bit more of his respect. And then I also think my dad was kind of just like, I can't do much. Like I can't really control anything. Like I think I just need to like let her go, be with them. So either that, or I'm kind of, I don't remember everything that happened. Either that's what it was. Like my dad was just like, I'm just gonna let you do what you got to do, or my mom gave my aunt guardianship. I think that's what it was, because I do remember my dad being upset when I moved. So I'm assuming maybe he actually didn't know that I'd left, because we ended up getting stationed in Missouri when I was 15. So it was like a year later.
So you moved with them.
Yeah, I moved with them. But I remember, and this is why I'm like, okay, you have to trust your discernment. Like you have to trust it. You can't gaslight yourself. Because I remember trying to get prepared for like it being a bad thing moving to Missouri, because yeah,
Like you just had an anxiety gut.
I had anxiety
about
because it was like, this is the best option, but I need to be prepared for it not to work out, because as much as I knew it wasn't the best option for me to go be with my dad's like girlfriend and family and stuff like that. My uncle and me, we had like a very like not that great relationship after a while. Because he was so militant, like he treated me like I was the soldier. Yeah. And
He's probably thinking that he needed to whip you into shape if you had like been disrespectful to your mom, or he saw
maybe
things in you that he's like, that's not right. Then it's like, but it's also like there's reasons why you're acting that way.
Yeah. It was like, I think actually at first, because he met me when I was younger, we had like a pretty good relationship, like from afar. He actually had favor with me, and I think that's what brought him to come to the decision of like, yeah, like we're keeping her.
Stay with them.
Yeah. But when he moved back and it was like day to day, I think reality hit. Like I just got done raising other kids and like being a housewife, basically. Like I'm not just gonna like be the most respectful, like
you can do so much.
Yeah, I wasn't
And
like,
you weren't talking about those things.
Yeah, all of those things were like an issue. They were still relevant. Like I just like just got like, it was one day I was living like that, and the next like I'm in a different situation. And mind you, I don't respect men. Like none of the men around me do I respect. So
why would you?
I just didn't. None of them were worthy of it to me. And so he moved back, and I did have a level of respect for him, but I'm still a kid, like I'm still a teenager, still developing and growing, and there's certain, like, you're immature, like there's certain things you have to just be taught, and I was not in a healthy household.
And uncle wasn't a healthy household.
No.
Okay.
It was the healthiest I had seen before.
I was gonna
they were
say,
married,
yeah.
you know, but he slept on the couch every day,
Okay.
and
A lot of fighting.
yeah,
Still.
if they were fighting, it was more passive. Like they didn't do it in
Okay.
front of me,
So that
but
was
I
different.
could tell. And when he wasn't around, she referred to him as the warden.
Oh.
Yeah, like like we'd be talking in the kitchen.
The warden.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about militant.
Bailey refers to me as that sometimes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, she referred to him as the warden, and even her respect for men in general still was little slim to none. Like she would make it very clear, like just the way she talked about him when he wasn't there. Like looking back, I'm like, oh, she didn't respect him. Yeah. So I'm still a teenager. I'm coming out of the lifestyle I'm coming out of, and you know, you're naturally gonna have an attitude sometimes. You know, be sassy. It wasn't like I was doing like the worst of the worst things, but it was enough for him probably to be like, oh no, I don't like this, you know. And I got caught doing something stupid with my cousin once. We went to hang out somewhere, and one of our other family members came, and he was like around our age, and he's smoking weed and doing stuff, and we're hanging out, and we didn't say anything, but my aunt sensed like something was off. She came to pick us up, got in trouble. Okay. Yeah. So I'd only got in trouble like maybe 2 times, like within the first year and a half I'm staying with them. But I think that caused them to not trust me as much. Like it didn't matter that I was asking for a purity ring because I want to wait till I was married to have sex. It didn't matter that like I was getting all A's and B's. It didn't matter that, you know, if I did do something wrong, I confessed to it before like anybody knew about it, because I think they just held it against me actually.
Were they like church going people?
No.
How did you why did you think it was right to ask for, why did you want to ask for like where did that come into play?
Yeah, so I have an aunt who's a Christian. She's a believer. Like she's like actually serious about the Lord. And I have 2 cousins by her that are girls, and I remember being like maybe like 8, and they had this magazine with like these rings circled in them, and I was like, oh, those are pretty, like what's going on? She's like, our mom is gonna get us rings, like purity rings. I'm like, what's that? She's like, well, you get this ring if you wait till you're married to have sex. Like you do it for Jesus, but you get this ring, and then you get a different ring when you get married. And so initially I just wanted the ring.
Yeah, like give me my jewels.
Give me the sparkle.
Initially I just wanted the ring. That's just all I wanted. But then as I got older, like more into like my teenage years, it was like, actually I think I actually want to stick to this. Like part of it was because I was like, everything y'all are doing is not working out for you. It's not. Like my aunt and my uncle were married, but obviously they probably didn't wait, and their marriage was just not, it didn't look, I just knew it was one I didn't want.
Yeah.
And so in my head it was just like, okay, well, I'm just not going to do it the way you guys did it. Like if I can do things the opposite of how you are doing it, then maybe I can get better results. Like that's just how I was thinking. I still was not fully surrendered to the Lord. I was not saved, but it was just like, okay, well, his way seems smarter than mine.
Different
and also,
game plan. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I want a ring. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But like I said, it just didn't matter. It didn't matter that I said all those things. It didn't matter that like when I did make mistakes, I confessed to them. I think they were holding it against me, like the few times I did make mistakes. And because they weren't Christians, they're like, with all that being said, there's a lack of faith, but then also when I'm trying, or lack of grace, excuse me. But then also when I am trying to pursue faith, there's like a discouragement to it. So like when I told my aunt, hey, I want a purity ring because I'm waiting till I'm married. She's like, well, how are you going to know how big his thing is? Yeah, I'm like 14. Yeah, I'm like 14. Wow. And I'm like, why aren't you happy? Like,
trying to convince you otherwise.
Yeah, like why are you not
just
happy?
like you've been experiencing this last year that you started out sharing with us. You were experiencing that as a little girl.
Yeah, it was very much. Yeah. I honestly, it's good that you brought that up. I didn't realize that till this year. Like I've been being gaslit like most of my life, like or discouraged.
Or being talked out of the life that the Lord is calling you to.
Yeah, but it would just be like, back then I had more of a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, I'm gonna prove you wrong. So
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh no, I am gonna wait, and I am gonna find a man that like I love, and things are gonna be great.
Yeah. And he will be blessed.
Yeah, we will be blessed, you know. But I'm like, I just wanted to prove them wrong. Like that's really, it was more fueled by like a anger. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna prove you
Out
wrong
of
type
spite.
attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it worked out for my good, but
Yeah.
it's just where I was at. For what it was worth, it was good, because I was not around any Christians
Yeah.
at all at this point.
Wild. Yeah.
I was not around any. I wasn't going to church, none of that. But I was trying. So right before I moved to Missouri, I was 15 and I did try going to church, but I would go with like some friends. None of them took God seriously. But then we moved to Missouri. So I was like, I didn't get to stay rooted at a church. Then I moved to Missouri, and it's like we moved into like the woods. Like it's like the sticks.
Out there.
Yeah, yeah. And when I first moved there when I was younger, I did not like it because I felt very isolated. I had no friends. Like I wanted my family. I missed my home. But it felt like that just a little bit worse because I'm not with anybody. Like I'm not with a grandma. I'm not with a cousin. I'm just with my aunt and my uncle. And like I said, I had prepared to like, this is probably going to be bad. Because before we moved, I went to my counselor and I said, okay, look, my uncle,
School counselor.
yeah, my school counselor, I'm 15. I'm in 9th grade. I go to my school counselor and I'm like, look, I'm about to move to another state. I don't want to move in with my dad or his girlfriend because they don't live a very good lifestyle. This is the best decision for me. I'm going to have to do this. But what do I do if I need to come back here? Because like what do I do if I need to come back here and I'm not 18? Because I don't have a good relationship with my uncle. Like I don't. It was very.
Where's your mom at this point?
I didn't
Off
really
with her
know.
boyfriend.
Yeah, off with her boyfriend, living her own life. I don't really know. I know, but by this point, maybe when I just didn't know it. Maybe around 12, she'd started like getting addicted to pills.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe before that, I'm not sure, but she had already been taken out a little bit by the alcohol and then the drugs.
Right.
Yeah, so it just proceeded to get worse, and we had a really bad relationship. I didn't like her, didn't want to talk to her.
So going back to your mom's house, if
Mhm.
Missouri didn't work out, was not an option.
No, I didn't even know where she lived.
And
Like,
how did your counselor respond?
She walked me through like emancipating myself, like kind of what that would look like if I didn't want to move in with my dad's girlfriend. And so I had like this, it was like a pink manila folder, and I put all this paperwork in it, and I had lost it, but I kept that because I was like, okay, I need to have a plan for if this doesn't work out with
Plan
my aunt and
B,
uncle.
back
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm.
The foresight you had at 15 is
Yeah.
just
Well,
I
she'd
was
been
like-
a stay-at-home wife already and
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can tell this is not going to go good, because when I lived here and I was living with them, it's like if they got mad at me or I got mad at them or I was stressed out, I could be like, hey, can I go to my cousin's house? I maybe couldn't like go to like a bunch of different friends' houses, but I could go stay at some family member's house, blow off steam, and then I would come back home and the problems would boil back up again after like a day or two, but at least I got a break, you know?
Yeah.
If I move to Missouri, there's nobody I'm around. It's just me and them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know how long this is going to last for, but you know, I need to be prepared if something doesn't work out. So she gives me this manila folder. I take it. I don't tell my aunt and uncle that I do this because I'm like, it's like survival mode. Like,
well, you're like planning if it doesn't work out with them. Of course, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't
want
like that.
You
Yeah.
didn't. No.
yeah, it didn't. I was like, no, I need to just figure this out. My counselor does not say anything to them. I'm like, thank you. Yeah. So it's like, it works out. And then we leave and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this might work out, because we drove to Missouri. Like we drove, but we did
From
like
Tacoma.
but we did like a really long road trip. And the reason we did it like that was because they wanted time to find a place to live. They hadn't actually rented out a place. And my uncle was going through like this, I don't know if you might want to cut this out. My uncle was going through like this crisis because he found out his dad wasn't really his dad. So he's like driving through Mississippi trying to figure out who his dad is.
Oh my.
Yeah, so we stayed there for some of the time, and we were there long enough where they were almost going to put me in school in Mississippi for a time. Yeah. So it was like, I was like, I really don't want to do that, but whatever.
But it's like you're there long enough that they're considering to put you in school.
Yeah.
But then you're actively not going to school.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we're just kind of just all over the place. So they don't put me in school in Missouri, or not Missouri, Mississippi. And then we drive through Texas and we're just staying all over the place. And then we finally get a place in Missouri, go to school there. And then that's when like my pursuit of faith started taking off. Because like I said, I knew there was a God and I believed his name was Jesus and that he died. But I had no understanding that I was not saved. Like that, like I had asked Jesus into my heart more than one time. Like I'm going to heaven. I believe there's a God and his name is Jesus. Like that's all it takes.
Right.
Like, so I'm there and because I'm by myself so much and me and my uncle, we don't really get along that well. Me and my aunt now, we don't really get along that well because before it was just me and my aunt, but now it's like me, my aunt, and her husband. So it's like I'm having issues with my uncle, but my uncle is still her husband. So she's still trying to respect him. They have their own marriage stuff going on. Again, I'm a teenager. I'm trying to figure my life out. I'm lonely. I'm homesick, all these things.
That wraps up week 1 of Tasia's story. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned next week as we uncover the rest of her journey and coming to find Christ and what that looked like.
I promise you want to hear part 2.
You do.
Okay, so we'll see you next week.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.